This video is a countdown of the dumbest times Americans got stuck in places no adult human should ever be stuck in. Chimneys, playgrounds, furniture, cars, machines, and spaces that clearly screamed, "Don't do this." Every story is real, every decision was optional, and every outcome proves that common sense is not nearly as common as we pretend. If you've ever thought, "That wouldn't happen to me," you're exactly who needs to watch this. 1. A California woman tried sliding down her ex's chimney to pay a visit because apparently knocking is too mainstream. She got wedged just feet from the bottom, screaming for hours while soot filled her mouth and nose, and neighbors wondered why the fireplace was crying. By the time she was yanked out with dish soap, her dignity was gone, and her mugshot looked like a chimney sweep's nightmare. 2. Thanks to a painfully dumb TikTok trend, full-grown teenagers keep jamming their hips into toddler swings. It's all fun and games until the plastic bucket fuses to your thighs and a crowd gathers to film your struggle. At what point did nobody say, "Hey, maybe don't do this"? Now you're internet famous for having the hips of an adult and the decision-making skills of a goldfish. 3. One Tennessee man wanted a Snickers bar so bad he shoved his entire arm up the vending machine chute. The anti-theft trap clamped down hard, leaving him attached to the glass box for an hour in a busy hallway. Hundreds of people walked by watching him cuddle a machine that only accepts quarters. All that pain for a $1.50 candy bar he never even touched. 4. A New Jersey woman dropped her phone in a storm drain and dove in headfirst like she was exploring the Titanic. She spent 40 minutes dangling upside down with her legs kicking in the air while traffic slowed down to gawk. The phone was gone forever. The footage of her butt stuck in the air, however, will live on the internet until the end of time. 5. An 11-year-old in Utah playing hide-and-seek thought the washing machine was a genius spot. It was, right up until her legs went numb and she realized she was folded like cheap lawn furniture. She sat there marinated in her own regret while her family took photos before helping. That's one way to get out of doing your chores. 6. 10 hours. That is how long a would-be burglar in Atlanta screamed into the darkness after getting his beer belly wedged in a business's chimney. The owner didn't find him until morning, hearing muffled sobbing coming from the fireplace. He didn't just leave in handcuffs. He left covered in soot, tears, and absolute failure. 7. A teenage girl in Alabama thought putting on a massive purple dinosaur head would be hilarious. The joke ended when the mask refused to come off, trapping her inside a claustrophobic plastic hell. Her friends didn't help. They just laughed hysterically while filming her full meltdown. She had to be cut out, but the nickname Barney is going to stick for life. 8. A Florida inmate tried to tunnel out of his cell, but forgot to account for the size of his own torso. He made it halfway through the brick before getting stuck, leaving his legs dangling inside the cell and his head outside. Guards found him hanging there like a weird hunting trophy. He didn't get freedom, but he definitely got a remodeling bill. 9. A Seattle high schooler went for a slam dunk and got his sneaker hopelessly tangled in the net on the way down. He was left hanging upside down 7 feet in the air, blood rushing to his head, while the entire gym class pointed and laughed. No ladder could save him from the fact that he was suspended like a piñata in front of his crush. 10. Dropping keys in a sewer is bad, but jamming your head between the grate bars to look for them is pure natural selection. A Boston man did exactly that, turning himself into a sidewalk attraction for pedestrians. He spent an hour smelling the city's waste while strangers took selfies with his trapped head. Some people really shouldn't be allowed outside without a helmet. 11. A drunk man in Oregon locked himself out and decided the doggy door was his only option. He made it exactly halfway through before his beer belly acted as a brake. He passed out and woke up the next morning with a hangover, stuck in the door while the family dog stared at him like it had finally lost all respect. 12. A teenage girl wanted a funny Snapchat photo, so she squeezed into a wooden high chair at a busy restaurant. The joke backfired when her hips refused to budge. The restaurant didn't even stop serving food while firefighters used a power saw to cut the chair off her, while diners kept eating their burgers like nothing was happening. 13. Watching action movies convinced a would-be robber that crawling through ventilation ducts is easy. It is not. He got wedged directly above the break room, forced to listen to employees eating their lunch while he marinated in his own sweat and regret for over a day before anyone found him. 14. A man tried to fish a shirt out of a donation bin, and the metal security door clamped down on his arm like a bear trap. He spent the entire night dangling by his wrist, effectively donating his dignity to charity until a confused truck driver found him the next morning. 15. A college student thought climbing inside a historic cannon for a photo was a brilliant idea. Gravity disagreed and he slid all the way down the barrel. He needed gallons of lube to be slid out of the ancient weapon like a very disappointing, human-sized cannonball. 16. Two friends decided to push each other in a shopping cart at high speed across a parking lot. One guy got jammed so tight inside the metal grid that he couldn't breathe. Emergency crews had to peel the cart off him in front of a cheering Walmart crowd that treated it like free entertainment. 17. A romantic in Denver tried to impress his date by jumping between two buildings. He missed the landing and slid into the 12-inch gap between the brick walls. He spent 4 hours acting as a human shim, while his date stood on the sidewalk, already swiping right on someone else. 18. A man bought police-grade handcuffs for recreational purposes but lost the key immediately. He had to walk into a local fire station at 3 in the morning, wearing only his boxers and a thick layer of regret, asking the crew to please cut him loose. 19. A library employee in Seattle climbed into a hollow tree trunk just to see if he fit. He did fit, but he couldn't climb back out. He slid 5 feet down into the dark, and rescue crews had to cut the whole tree down, destroying nature just to save one very curious adult. 20. A woman sat in a mall massage chair and the mechanical rollers malfunctioned, clamping onto her legs with a vice grip. She was held hostage by the furniture in the middle of the food court, screaming for help while shoppers stepped around her, eating pretzels and pretending this was normal. 21. Trying to save $3 on fare, a New Yorker jumped the subway turnstile and got his belt loop hooked on the metal bar. He was left dangling upside down, exposing his underwear to thousands of rush-hour commuters who didn't even stop walking to help him. 22. A father tried to follow his toddler down a spiral slide and got wedged on the first sharp turn. He created a massive traffic jam of crying children behind him. The fire department had to dismantle the entire playground structure while other parents filmed instead of helping. 23. A man investigating a noise in his attic stepped off the beams and punched his legs straight through the drywall. He got stuck at the crotch, legs dangling into the living room. He spent an hour presenting himself to his family like the world's worst chandelier. 24. A wannabe basketball star went for a dunk and got his torso stuck inside the metal rim. He hung there for 30 minutes, realizing that being suspended 10 feet in the air with your shirt pulled over your head is not the viral moment he planned. The highlight reel never came. The memes did. 25. A hotel guest slipped in the shower and got his knee jammed behind the grab bar. He was stuck naked, wet, and cold for an hour, until the staff heard him yelling. He was eventually freed, but the housekeeping staff will never forget what they saw. 26. A man in an IKEA showroom decided to test a Poang chair by sticking his head through the backrest slats, because sitting is apparently too boring. He got wedged immediately. He spent 40 minutes wearing Swedish furniture as a wooden necklace while shoppers stepped around him to look at the meatballs, completely unbothered by his suffering. 27. A high school freshman tried to prove he could fit inside a locker to impress his friends. He fitted perfectly, but the door jammed shut behind him. He spent the entire lunch period huddled in the dark, smelling old gym socks, and listening to his friends laugh while the janitor took his sweet time finding the master key. 28. A porch pirate tried to fish a package out of a secure apartment mailbox, but the anti-theft slot worked exactly as designed. His arm got caught deep inside. Residents walked by all afternoon, collecting their mail and ignoring the grown man attached to the wall like a barnacle, leaving him to think about his life choices. 29. An office worker dropped his favorite pen behind the heavy industrial copier and crawled back to get it. He got pinned tightly between the machine and the wall. The entire accounting department heard his muffled pleas, but decided to finish their coffee break and discuss quarterly projections before calling maintenance. 30. A dad tried to race his son through the McDonald's playplace tunnels and got wedged in the clear plastic tube. His face was visibly squished against the glass like a sad fish. He had to watch 20 kids crawl over his trapped body, while other parents continued eating their fries in peace. 31. A tourist in Philadelphia wanted a funny photo with a statue and stuck his knee through a bronze loop. It swelled up instantly, locking him in place. He became part of the exhibit for 2 hours while tour groups stopped to take pictures of the idiot who fought art and lost. The statue won. 32. A gym bro tried to squeeze out of a weight machine without unstrapping to save 3 seconds. He got tangled in the cables and fell face first. He just lay there on the rubber mat until a personal trainer looked over, sighed deeply, and finally cut him loose in front of the cardio section. 33. A mascot for a local baseball team had his zipper jam, trapping him inside a hot, smelly Eagle suit. He passed out from heat exhaustion right in the dugout. The paramedics had to cut him open like a stuffed animal in front of the whole roster, revealing the sweaty, regretful man inside. 34. A 6-year-old wanted a plushie so bad he climbed up the prize chute of a claw machine. He got inside the glass box but couldn't get out. He spent an hour happily playing with the toys in his new aquarium while his mother hyperventilated on the other side of the glass. 35. A toddler put a plastic toilet training seat over his head like a necklace. It clicked past his ears and locked tight. The parents drove him to the ER with the white plastic ring still around his neck, looking like a very confused, very uncool rapper while the triage nurse tried not to laugh. 36. A drunk guy bet he could fit his head through a wrought iron fence. He did, but his ears acted as anchors on the way back. He stayed there all night. The morning joggers didn't even stop running, treating him like a new, slightly alcoholic lawn ornament. 37. A shopper at Costco climbed a mountain of paper towels to reach the back. The stack shifted, and he fell into the center of the pallet. He was trapped in a white fortress of toilet paper, shouting for help, while customers just grabbed rolls from around him, ignoring the voice from the void. 38. A college girl dropped her earring on a balcony and stuck her head through the railing to look. She got stuck looking down at the street, unable to pull back. Her roommates didn't call for help until they finished posting the video to every social media platform in existence. 39. A man locked his keys in the trunk and tried to squeeze through the armrest hole in the back seat. His hips got stuck, leaving his legs kicking helplessly in the cabin. His wife sat in the driver's seat and turned up the radio to drown out his complaining until a locksmith arrived. 40. A homeowner went into the attic to hide Christmas presents and stepped between the joists. He fell through the drywall up to his armpits. He hung from the ceiling of the dining room for 20 minutes, just watching his family eat dinner below him while they pretended not to notice the plaster in their mashed potatoes. 41. A commuter decided to change his work shirt while driving on the highway to save 5 minutes. He got his arms hopelessly tangled in the sleeves with the fabric pulled over his eyes. He rolled slowly into a ditch and sat there blindly while passing drivers just honked at him to get out of the way. 42. A college student was too lazy to move the heavy couch to plug in his charger, so he just crawled underneath it. The sofa settled onto his back, pinning him to the carpet. He lay there for an hour until his roommate came home, made a sandwich, and ate the entire thing before helping him up. 43. A jogger tried to squeeze through a small gap in a park fence to avoid running an extra block. His hips lied to him, and he got wedged waist-deep. He spent his morning workout stuck there while dog walkers strolled past, nodding at him politely as if this was just a new, avant-garde yoga pose. 44. A restaurant employee didn't feel like breaking down cardboard boxes, so he jumped into the dumpster to stomp them flat. His boot got wedged tight in a wooden pallet. He just stood there smoking a cigarette, waiting for his shift manager to come out and fire him for being trash. 45. A woman in a department store tried to force herself into a dress 2 sizes too small because the line for the next size was too long. The zipper jammed, trapping her arms above her head. She had to walk out to the sales counter like a sad ballerina to ask the cashier for a pair of scissors. 46. A guy wanted to show his new puppy that the travel crate wasn't scary, so he crawled inside. The door latched shut behind him. He spent the afternoon curled up in the fetal position while the puppy peed on the carpet right in front of his face, completely unimpressed by the demonstration. 47. A home cook dropped a spoon behind the oven and refused to pull the heavy appliance out. He jammed his arm into the gap and the metal sheet sliced back, acting like a giant Chinese finger trap. He stood there cooking the rest of the meal with one hand until dinner was served. 48. A drone pilot climbed a tree to retrieve his toy and got his belt hook caught on a thick branch. He couldn't lift himself off. He hung there for 20 minutes in total silence, thinking about gravity, before unbuckling his pants and falling to the ground in his underwear. 49. A man tried to exit the swimming pool without using the ladder by rolling over the edge in a large inner tube. He got high-centered on the concrete lip like a beached whale. The lifeguard didn't blow the whistle. He just watched him flop around for 5 minutes until gravity finally did its job. 50. A shopper was too tired to stand on the escalator, so he sat down on the moving step. His jacket got sucked into the side panel immediately. He rode up and down 3 times while other shoppers just stepped over him, checking their phones and pretending he wasn't part of the machinery. 51. A businessman tried to squeeze into a revolving door compartment that was already occupied to catch a train. The door jammed, trapping 3 strangers together in a glass box. They stood in awkward silence for 10 minutes, checking emails and refusing to make eye contact while the lobby watched. 52. A homeowner tried to clear snow off his roof by climbing out the bathroom window instead of getting a ladder. He slipped and got wedged in the window frame, half in and half out. His wife inside just turned up the thermostat and let him think about his choices in the cold. 53. A gym member dropped his soap in the shower stall and tried to pick it up without opening the door. His elbow jammed in the handle, pinning him against the glass. He stood naked and wet while guys wrapped in towels walked past, discussing protein shakes and ignoring his predicament. 54. A student tried to climb into his top bunk without the ladder because it was on the other side of the room. He slipped and got his head stuck between the mattress and the safety rail. He didn't even call for help. He just accepted his fate and fell asleep like that. 55. A driver dropped his credit card at the automated car wash terminal. Too lazy to open the door, he leaned out the window and got his torso stuck just as the wash cycle started. He got the cleanest face in the county, but his dignity will never be clean again. 56. The vacuum hose was never meant to clean that part of the body. A curious guy in Ohio found this out the hard way. The suction was too strong to break the seal. He had to drive himself to the ER with a Hoover attached to his thigh, like a new, unwanted limb. The triage nurse didn't ask questions. She just pointed to the waiting room. 57. By the time the fire department arrived, he had already accepted his new life as a doorstop. A homeowner locked himself out and tried the pet flap. His hips made it through. The rest of him didn't. He hung there for 3 hours while his own cats walked over his back to get inside, treating him like furniture. 58. A teenager wanted to relive his childhood at the park, but forgot he had gained 100 pounds since then. The bucket seat gripped him like a vice. He sat there in the rain for 40 minutes. No one called for help. The other park-goers just assumed this was some weird performance art and kept walking their dogs. 59. At 3 in the morning, a camping trip went wrong. A guy sat in a cheap folding chair and the frame collapsed, scissoring around his waist. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't reach his knife. He just shuffled around the campsite like a metal crab until his friends woke up at dawn to release him. 60. Saving $50 on a plumber cost this man his dignity. He stuck his hand down the garbage disposal to grab a dropped ring. The metal blades didn't cut him, but the housing trapped his wrist. He had to be cut out of his own sink while the water dripped on his head. The ring was fake anyway. 61. This ended exactly how you expect it would. A guy tried to sneak back into his own house through the chimney because he lost his keys. He got wedged at the hips. He spent the night screaming into the fireplace while his roommates watched TV in the living room, assuming the noise was just the wind. 62. A tourist tried on a wetsuit 2 sizes too small in a surf shop changing room. He got it half on and then couldn't get it off. His arms were pinned to his sides like a penguin. The sales clerk had to peel him out of the neoprene like a banana while customers waited to use the stall. 63. Nobody stopped. Nobody even looked up from their phones. A commuter got his backpack strap caught in the closing subway doors. He was tethered to the outside of the train at the station. He had to run along with the train for 10 feet until the safety sensor finally kicked in. The other passengers just turned up their music. 64. Plastic toy handcuffs are stronger than they look. A bachelor party prank went south when the groom got cuffed to a hotel radiator. The key snapped in the lock. He spent his last night of freedom attached to a heater while his friends went to the bar without him. He was warm, but he wasn't happy. 65. Regret was immediate. A college student put his head through the stair banister to talk to someone on the floor below. His ears acted like anchors on the way back up. He spent the entire party kneeling on the stairs, greeting guests as they arrived. People just stepped over him like he was a rug. 66. A homeowner crawled under his deck to chase a raccoon. The raccoon got out. The homeowner did not. He got wedged between the ground and the beams. He lay there in the dirt for an hour, staring at the underside of his barbecue grill while his wife finished cooking burgers right above his head. 67. During the lunch rush, a fast food worker tried to climb out the drive-thru window to grab a dropped headset. He got stuck halfway. For 20 minutes, he became a human speed bump. Customers just handed their credit cards to the person behind him, reaching over his trapped body to get their nuggets. 68. Trusting a YouTube tutorial was his first mistake. A man tried a complex yoga pose involving a folding chair. He slipped and fell through the backrest gap. He was folded in half, feet touching his ears, unable to move. The video kept playing on a loop, telling him to breathe into the stretch while he waited for help. 69. It was not worth the photo. A guy climbed a basketball hoop to sit on the rim for a profile picture. His foot slipped through the net and tangled. He hung upside down for an hour. The school bus drove by. The kids didn't laugh. They just stared at him in confused silence. 70. The censors didn't care. A shopper tried to squeeze through the sliding doors as they were closing. They clamped on his shoulders. He stood there, acting as the door seal, while the air conditioning blasted him in the face. People inside just used the other exit, leaving him to have a staring contest with his own reflection. 71. The space was smaller than his shoulders. A gamer dropped a quarter behind a heavy arcade machine and squeezed into the gap to retrieve it. He exhaled to fit, but couldn't inhale to get out. He stood in the dusty darkness for an hour, pinned against the wall, listening to the game's attract mode play the same song on a loop. 72. Turning back was impossible. An amateur spelunker crawled into a narrow rock fissure just to see where it went. It went nowhere. The rock ceiling was 2 inches from his nose. He couldn't lift his head. He couldn't move his arms. He just lay in the cold, wet dark, waiting for a rescue team that was miles away. 73. Silence is heavy when you are inside a wall. A homeowner went into the attic and slipped between the unfloored joists, sliding down into the hollow wall cavity. He landed on his feet, unharmed but trapped in a vertical coffin of drywall. He had no phone. No one was home. He just stood there and listened to his own heartbeat. 74. The soot tasted like regret. He tried the chimney again, assuming he was thinner than the last guy. He wasn't. Gravity wedged him tight at the waist, leaving his legs dangling in the fireplace and his head in total darkness. He stopped screaming after 10 minutes because the dust filled his mouth every time he opened it. 75. The circle of light above was the only thing he could see. A man dropped his phone down an old dry well and climbed down the rope to get it. The rope snapped. The walls were too slick to climb. He spent the night at the bottom of the hole, looking up at the stars, realizing how small the sky actually looks from 20 feet down. 76. He realized too late that the gap was too narrow. He dropped his keys down the elevator shaft and reached his arm through the opening to fish them out. The heavy steel doors tried to close, clamping onto his bicep. The safety sensor didn't trip. He spent 40 minutes tethered to the shaft, feeling the wind of the elevator moving past him in the dark. 77. The latch clicked. That was the sound that ended his day. A man crawled into his own trunk to fix a speaker wire, and the wind blew the lid shut. It locked. The heat started building immediately. He banged on the metal for an hour, but the insulation designed to keep road noise out also kept his screams in. 78. Gravity stopped working halfway down. A teenager jumped into a laundry chute, expecting a fun slide to the basement. He got stuck at the first bend. His arms were pinned to his sides in the metal tube. It was pitch black. The smell of old laundry detergent was suffocating. He didn't slide. He didn't move. He just waited. 79. The smell hit him first, then the panic. A restaurant worker climbed into the garbage compactor chute to dislodge a stuck bag. He slipped and slid all the way down. The walls were steep steel. The dumpster was deep. He sat on a pile of wet trash for 3 hours in the dark, praying nobody upstairs pushed the compact button. 80. Breathing became a luxury. A man tried to hide under a heavy electric bed frame during a game of hide-and-seek. The bed motor malfunctioned and lowered the frame, pinning him to the floor. The weight was crushing. He couldn't expand his chest enough to yell. He just took shallow sips of air until his friends finally found him. 81. It was pitch black. A curious explorer entered a storm drain tunnel during dry weather. Then it started to rain. The water rose slowly, inch by inch, cold and smelling of runoff. He pressed himself against the concrete ceiling, keeping his nose in the last pocket of air, waiting for the storm to pass. 82. The steel was cold against his back. A gun owner was cleaning his large safe, and the heavy door swung shut. The locking bolts engaged. The interior release handle broke off in his hand. He sat in the absolute dark, surrounded by his weapons, realizing that none of them could help him open 3 inches of steel. 83. The springs dug into his ribs. A man tried to retrieve a remote from inside a fold-out sofa bed and fell into the mechanism. The couch folded up on him. He was trapped inside the furniture like a sandwich filling, listening to his family searching the room for him, unable to make a sound through the cushions. 84. The box was 2 feet wide. A waiter thought it would be funny to ride the old dumbwaiter elevator between floors. The cable jammed between levels. He was sealed in a wooden box the size of a microwave, suspended in the dark shaft. The air grew hot. The joke stopped being funny instantly. 85. He stopped yelling. It was a waste of oxygen. A student shut himself inside a sensory deprivation tank at a wellness center after hours. The lid jammed. Floating in salt water, in total darkness, in total silence. He didn't know if it had been minutes or hours. He just floated, waiting for the morning crew to unlock the door. 86. Relaxation turned into a trap immediately. A dad tried to spin all the way around in a hammock to impress his kids, but the netting twisted shut like a cocoon. He spent the entire afternoon suspended 3 feet off the ground, unable to move his arms while his children used him as a human swing set. 87. Saving money on a ticket cost him his pride. A fan tried to squeeze 2 people through one turnstile at a baseball game. The metal bars locked instantly against his ribcage. He stood there for the first 3 innings, blocking the entrance while hundreds of angry fans had to squeeze past his trapped torso to get to their seats. 88. Nostalgia is a dangerous thing for adults. A woman visited her old playground and sat in the tire swing. Her hips fit in, but they refused to come out. She had to walk to the fire station wearing a 30-pound rubber tire around her waist like the world's worst fashion accessory while traffic stopped to take pictures. 89. The meeting started without him. An office intern crawled under the conference table to plug in a projector and got his belt loop hooked on the metal frame. He couldn't back out. He had to lie there in silence for an hour while the CEO conducted a performance review directly above his head, staring at his sneakers. 90. It was a simple bet that went wrong. A guy at a bar claimed he could fit his entire body through the rungs of a wooden stool. He made it to his chest before getting wedged. The bartender didn't help. He just kept serving drinks around the human obstacle while patrons used his back as a coaster for their beers. 91. The cosplay was too realistic. A fan put on a stormtrooper helmet at a convention, but the latch malfunctioned. He couldn't see, couldn't eat, and couldn't take it off. He spent the entire weekend drinking smoothies through a straw in the mask's vent, looking like a very thirsty, very sad soldier of the Empire. 92. Plastic chairs are not invincible. At a backyard barbecue, A guest tried to sit on a stack of 4 chairs for extra height. The bottom one broke, and he fell through the middle too. He wore the plastic frames like a rigid skirt for 20 minutes while his friends continued flipping burgers and laughing at his new armor. 93. Getting dressed should be the easy part of the day. A man in a rush put both legs into the same pant leg of his jeans and fell over. The denim tightened around his ankles, effectively tying him up. He had to hop to the front door to let the delivery driver in, looking like a mermaid in Levi's. 94. Camping requires certain skills he didn't have. A guy zipped himself into a sleeping bag all the way to the top, and the zipper snagged on the fabric. He was sealed inside a mummy bag, rolling around the tent floor in a panic. His friends didn't unzip him until they finished roasting marshmallows and filming his struggle. 95. The key was inside, and he was outside. A naked man tried to crawl through his own doggy door to get back in after a shower lockout. He got stuck at the shoulders. He spent 20 minutes presenting his bare rear end to the street traffic while the family dog licked his face from the inside, thinking it was a game. 96. Snacks are not worth the risk. A toddler put a glass jar over his head to lick the last of the cheese puffs. The vacuum seal effect took over. The parents rushed him to the hospital, where he sat in the waiting room looking like a confused astronaut while other patients tried to guess what flavor the cheese was. 97. Vanity has a price. A woman put on a latex dress for a photo shoot but didn't use enough powder. The sweat acted as glue. She was fused to the rubber, unable to lift her arms or bend her knees. She had to be cut out of the expensive outfit with kitchen shears while her date watched in silence. 98. Yoga tutorials usually mention safety. A beginner tried to fold himself into a pretzel pose and actually succeeded. He got his foot stuck behind his head and couldn't unhook it. He rolled around the living room floor for an hour, looking like a broken action figure until his roommate came home to snap him back into place. 99. Wet cement is a magnet for bad decisions. A teenager wanted to write his initials in a fresh sidewalk and stepped right in. The concrete was deeper and thicker than it looked. He sank to his knees, and the quick-drying mix seized his legs. The construction crew just stood there, watching him become a permanent part of the pavement. 100. Physics doesn't care about your curiosity. A man put his thumb into a bowling ball hole that was clearly too small. It swelled. He walked out of the bowling alley with a 12-pound ball attached to his hand like a cartoon character. He drove all the way home, steering with one hand and a giant heavy sphere. 101. The trash can is where this belongs. A college student bet he could hide inside a metal garbage can to scare his roommate. He slid in, but his hips created a perfect vacuum seal. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't get out. He had to be rolled down the hallway on his side like a metal log, proving that sometimes you just belong in the bin. Now flip the spotlight. Don't point at the screen, point at real life. In the comments, tell us the most embarrassing story of someone you personally know who got stuck somewhere they absolutely shouldn't have. Friend, coworker, sibling, ex, doesn't matter. No names needed, but no mercy either. If you've ever rescued someone, filmed someone, or had to pretend you didn't see it, this is your moment to expose humanity. Like the video if at least one story made you physically uncomfortable. Subscribe if you already know this series is going to ruin how you look at everyday objects, and drop that story, because the comments should be just as unhinged as the video.